What's going on, Jerome's? The NFL offseason is upon us, and some Vikings players are going to be let go. Some notable free agents. Some players are going to get cut. Some potentially could get traded. So we're going to put our prediction hat on, and we're going to predict 2023 landing spots for some of these Vikings veterans. And some of these are spicy, es muy caliente. And now, these are not what I want, some of them, but some of them it's just like sort of is what it is. So I'm going to go through our logic. So up at the top, Kirk Cousins, 2023 team, the Vikings, yes. For as much fun as speculation with Lamar Jackson is, I think Kirk is going to be that guy in 2023. Now, that doesn't mean that the Vikings won't make a move to get their quarterback of the future in the draft, and his future in 2024 and beyond is up in the air since Kirk Cousins has not received that extension. And even though Daniel Jones got all the money, it's kind of crazy, man. Next up, running back Dalvin Cook. Now, $2 million of Dalvin's $10.4 million base salary is going to become fully guaranteed, but I think at a certain point, even though Dalvin is only 28, 28 is pretty old by running back standards, and last season was not great. He does have a surgically repaired shoulder now, but I think the Vikings part way with Dalvin, and he goes back home. Yeah, back to Miami, where it's a perfect spot for him. They need some running back help. McDaniel, coming from the Shanahan tree, runs a lot of outside zone, and Dalvin being able to play in front of friends and family every single week, it makes a lot of sense, man. Next up, running back Alexander Mattison. So if the Vikings let go of Dalvin, maybe they make an effort to keep Madison, but I think Madison wants to find a spot where he can be that running back one. And even here with the Vikings, even without Dalvin, I think that there will be a commitment to guys like Ty Chandler and Kincaid and rookie TBD. But Madison heads to the mountains, where George Paton was the Vikings assistant GM when the Vikings traded down, and still got Alexander Madison in the third round. And also the reports of Javonte Williams ACL, not great, so it could be a spot where Madison, by the way, joining Mike Boone, love it, man, could end up as the lead running back, at least to start, with stupid Sean Payton and the Broncos. Next up, wide receiver Adam Thielen. Even though they restructured him last offseason, and he carries a more significant dead cap than he would have if they hadn't, I still think at a certain point, I don't think that the Vikings will have the role that Thielen wants, and I think that the Vikings will want him to take a pay cut either way. So I think the Vikings and Thielen are headed towards a divorce, and Thielen going to be cut and be a free agent. Arizona makes a ton of sense. So Jonathan Gannon was on staff for the Vikings for a couple of seasons on Zimmer's staff, so he knows Thielen. He knows what he's like in the locker room. Also, more importantly, their offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing, is going to be running that side of the ball. He was the Vikings' assistant wide receiver coach and wide receiver coach for a number of seasons, working with Thielen hand in glove before eventually Petzing left to join Stefanski's staff with the Browns. And with the Cardinals, so Nuke probably going to get traded. Chosen Anderson got cut, and also A.J. Green retired. So there's a lot of room for improvement in the Cardinals receiver room. It's like Rondale Moore and Hollywood Brown, and that's it. So Thielen can still add some value there. Next up, Irv Smith Jr. I think that the market for Irv is going to be surprisingly large. Like, it's going to be more than people think. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all if he gets $8, $9, $10 million per year. But the Patriots, Belichick loves him some tight ends. Also, he loves him some former Alabama players. And Irv, I mean, he's still young. Still super young and still has not quite panned out on that potential, but he can join the Patriots. He can be that security blanket for fellow Alabama alum Mac Jones. And I think that, absent the pressure of him being tight end one, like if he can be tight end 2+, would absolutely be perfect for him and in New England. Offensive tackle Oli Udoh. So Oli Udoh did not work out at guard. I still think that he is still a serviceable swing backup at tackle. And you look at Jacksonville, where they're probably going to lose Jawan Taylor in free agency, so looking for some depth along the offensive line. Now, you're not going to sign Udoh to be a starter, but as a guy that can be a depth piece and swing backup, yes. Also, Phil Rauscher is the offensive line coach in Jacksonville, so he could potentially be putting in a good word since Phil spent a couple seasons here with the Vikings. Next up, center Garrett Bradbury. He's going home. He's going home. So he's a Carolina dude, the pride of NC State. Also, the Patriots could be losing Bradley Bozeman in free agency. So whether it's Sam Darnold under center or if they make a move to find the rookie TBD, having the Grim Reacher at the pivot does make sense. And also Bradbury gets a chance to go home. Next up, center, Austin Schlutman. I think he sticks with the Vikings, where he was a perfectly serviceable backup interior offensive lineman, sort of the Vikings' new Brett Jones. Also, his ties with Cooper and Riscotti from their days in Denver, and as well as Curtis Modkins, makes sense to bring him back at a reduced rate or league minimum, whatever. Diesel Dalvin Thompson, yes, run it back. The Vikings and Diesel kick the can on the void date of his contract. I think they work things out, and the Vikings don't create another need by keeping one of the solid defensive line players from last season. They're few and far between. Edge rusher Danielle Hunter. I think they work out a extension with Daniil. I think that he proved that he can stay healthy, as well as he's still one of the elite edge rushers in the game. Whether he's learning a new role, whether Flores is putting him in spots to be successful, I love to see it. Then Zadarius Smith. So the Vikings can free up around $12 million in cap space by moving on from Zadarius. Now, it's a really, really good edge class, so I think that really does reduce some of Zadarius' trade value, which I think is nothing. So I think that the Vikings kind of sucks, but it's balancing his age, balancing his health issues the last 2 years. I think the Vikings do end up cutting Zadarius, and I think he ends up back in Baltimore. Because remember, they were interested in re-signing him last offseason, but then things fell through, and then he came to the Vikings, and he proved that he was Defensive Player of the Year candidate the first half of the season before he got dinged up again, and the Ravens could have some the Ravens always need edge rushers, so I think that the demand could be there, and also it's a team that he's familiar with. He's an area that he's familiar with, and it works out there. And also, he was going to re-sign with them last year. Linebacker Jordan Hicks. I think the Vikings are going to cut him very soon. I think that he joins up, follows Greg Minuski to the Broncos, where they're installing a new defense, as well as having a little bit of veteran leadership there. Makes sense. Next up, Duke Shelley. I want Duke Shelley back. But just sort of reading the tea leaves right now, I think that it's a situation where Duke Shelley and Patrick Peterson are your two main free agent cornerbacks. But I think it's a spot where I think they do run it back with P squared, even though stylistically it doesn't necessarily match up with what Flores traditionally likes at outside corner. It's still Patrick Peterson, right? And Duke Shelley, I think he earned himself some money. Maybe the Vikings don't want to pay it. I don't know. But working with the Chiefs, you're joining the Super Bowl champs. They have a need at cornerback as well, opposite McDuffie. Plus Shelley went to school at Kansas State, so that could make some sense there. Next up, Chris Boyd. Backup cornerback, great special teamer. There's a bit of a contingent of former Vikings down there in Dallas, with JEROME and company. But Chris Boyd, who formerly the pride of Texas, heads back to the Lone Star State. Harrison Smith, I think they'll work something out. Because even though Harrison is getting a little bit longer in the tooth and maybe is not worth the $20 million cap hit, I think that they'll work out a deal, and Harrison can certainly thrive in Flores' new defense, and they keep Harrison in purple, and hopefully he retires in purple. And then Greg Joseph. So we're going to say Rams, because I think that there's a spot where the Vikings make a run at Matt Gay, who the Rams did not franchise tag, is going to hit open free agency, and it's sort of a bit of a Yankee swap. So the Vikings sign Matt Gay, Greg Joseph goes and joins Sean McVay and company with the Rams. So there you go. Anyways, that's it. That's landing spot predictions for some Vikings free agents, as well as guys who might be available. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. We'll support the work. Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol Production Value.